everybody, I'm Ben for the Ben Podcast, and just running you through a quick video on how to use Roll20 to play Blood Bowl. Not how to set it up. A person called Soon put a really helpful video in our Blood Bowl 7's community group on Facebook, so go and have a look at that. I followed this guide and then just played around to get my own settings to make it work, and a really useful guide, so check that out. This is about how to use it to play games. So we're going to be using a couple of different layouts. We've got one, our streamer layout, which shows everything that we need to kind of display the game to people who aren't playing it. And then we're also going to cut to this display, which is the web page itself. So let's have a look and see some of the controls you'll need. So here we have the main screen. We have set up macros. So Sam helped me set this up. Down at the bottom here, let's just check you can see. Yeah, you can. And what that does is you can just use it to quickly roll dice. You can see it's all set up. We've got the injury chart in there, the kickoff chart, and the weather chart as well. So nice and easy. And we've set it up so that on the stream page, back to here, you can see that when we roll things, you can see it come up, which is really, really great. So on the page itself, if you are playing as a player, you can click these guys and you will get these three circles come up. You can use these to present stats. Now, Soon did talk about this in his setup video, and we've done exactly the same, which is movement, strength, agility. There isn't one for armor, which is a bit of a shame, but still that's quite useful. As a player, you can just click a piece, and if they've programmed the stats in, which I haven't done for all of these guys clearly, you can see that they come up. Actually, I think that might just be on a different level. Another useful trick is if you click and hold for 3 seconds, 1, 2, okay, 2 seconds, you will see that it will go and it will send a little circle out there. That's really useful for signposting to your opponent because they won't see where you're clicking. So what we're going to do is click off that, and using a separate device, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So we can see that the player is clicking that and he's moving the guy to there. So best practices. What we've decided to do with on our side is you can use these little tabs here. So this one is the settings tab. So if you've got access to that as player, you can put their name, you can adjust their bars, you can give them auras as well, which is very useful. So if you get to a point where your guys have skills, you can set skill rings basically. So we're going to say this guy has a 0-foot aura. I'm going to give him a red skill ring. Click Save Changes, and you'll see he's got a red circle around him now, which will differentiate him from other players. You can set square instead, which again is pretty cool. It shows you who's who basically. You can activate the names as well in GM mode, but as the players take up the square, the names go below the square and they're visible to everybody all the time, so it gets a bit crowded. So you can see as a player, you can go and you can see, so you can actually number your players and who they are, you can give them the names, whatever, and you can see them by clicking this settings button. Another really important element is this button here, which is the statuses button, or statuses. And you see we've got all these different colors you can attach and symbols. So some of the things we've used or like to use is red to say that you've activated the player. On a tabletop, you normally turn your model around or to the side just so you can see you've activated him. It's the same on here. So we use the red button to show that he's activated during this turn. So realistically, the best way to do this is to go, right, I'm going to activate this guy, 1, 2, so ping, so the opponent can see who you're using, and then you immediately pop the red button, say, right, I'm activating him, and he is going to move, or he is going to blitz. Now, there's a cool lightning helix thing that we use for to say that we've blitzed with them. There's a couple of other statuses here that we'll talk through in a moment. But you can use the blitz to say he's blitzed. And then the really cool thing is you can move one square at a time, like this, and talk through what you're moving, where you're going. That's absolutely fine. One cool thing Sam showed me is if you hold this guy down and move him to a square and then right click, you will get path movement like this, and then when you let go, he will travel that path. And I'll show you what it looks like to someone who's not on the screen. So if you're not the active player here, so the blitzer, okay, green line is going to move, and if you're in the clear, you can right click through his squares and move him exactly where you want him, And then when you release that movement on our screen, we'll see that path. I recommend actually doing it a different way. I recommend the best and easiest way is to count with your opponent. So 1, 2, I'm going to move this guy. He's going to go 1 to there, 2 to there, because as you'll see on the other side, it's a bit easier for you to follow. So we're going to move this this lineman. He's going to go 1 to there, 2 to there, 3 to there, 4 to there, 5 to there. And it might be easier to see tackle zones if you do it that way. However, you're working with your opponent, you're through voice chat, through video chat, whatever works better for you. And as long as you're clear with what you're doing, it's not too bad at all. And on the statuses, let's say that this little guy moves down here, knocks his own blitzer over. We are using the red cross to say down or stunned. So if they are down, they are like that. And we're using the no entry button to identify when a player is stunned. So you know you can't do anything with him, and at the end of your turn, you take the stunned marker off. And if he starts with none of that, then he can just go immediately. Right, we're going to activate him, red button, and we're going to stand him up, 1, 2, 3. And then he's going to move 1, 2, 3 more squares. Let's have a little bit of fun. This blitzer here is going to blitz this goblin with the chainsaw here. And he is going to blitz in 1 square. Then let's activate him, showing he's using a blitz, and he's going to blitz this goblin. And again, we're clicking and holding just so our opponent can see exactly what we're doing. I'm going to do it on the other screen so that you can see. So let's move the blitzer back. This blitzer is going to go 1, 2, and he's going to blitz this goblin here. And then what you can do on the screen when you get to that point is say, all right, that's he gets a 2 dice block because he's higher strength. If I'm not sure, you click on the piece and it will tell you what the strength is. And then we roll 2 dice using the macro at the bottom. And we can see down here that you get a push and a skull. So actually we're going to push that guy, and I can't access him because I haven't set it live, but you can do that, or you can burn a reroll and reroll the dice, push in a skull. Nothing better. On positioning your pieces around the board, we've got it so that they stick to a grid, which is exactly what you want because it makes it really easy to move pieces around in a grid-based game. If for some reason you want to move things in a specific place, you hold the Alt key. So these rerolls, for example, they're not snapped to the squares because it's slightly different size. So the way you do it is you move a piece exactly where you want it, hold Alt, let go, and he stays exactly where he is. It's the same for resizing, and it works if you hold the Alt button anywhere. It basically takes away the grid snap. Otherwise, you use it and leave it in place. So we've got the ball here, and what we found was quite useful, was using this ball marker because it is huge. We put a yellow background on it, so a yellow aura here, 0 feet with a yellow, not square, just to help make it pop so you can really see where the ball is. And we set it so that if a player picks up the ball, they get the little white circle, and then you chuck the ball somewhere else. The white circle it stands out really well, and it doesn't have the slight overlay difficulties there. I mean, you can select both of those people and move them at the same time, which is fine if you want to do that, but I found that it was a little bit easier to just chuck the ball aside and use the circle status to make it known where the ball is. Now, because we've got this set up to stream on here, in this display here, it's slightly skew-if. In fact, I need to fix that a little bit. Okay, it's slightly skew-if on our other screen, so you can't see the top dugout. You can't see the top dugout. So we were just using this bottom dugout as it fits better on the screen. When it comes to the rerolls, here, we were just having a marker for each team. Markers and rerolls, and again using the Alt button, we're just moving the turn markers. One thing we did find that was a bit of a pain was when both turn markers were on the same thing. So when Sam and I played a game, we just binned that really and ended up using 1 turn marker for both players. So the first player's turn marker moved, and he was the only one that moved the turn marker, and that worked out pretty well. Otherwise, we just got standard linemen for each of the teams, and we were just using them to cover the score, the fame, the turn, the reroll, and it worked really, really well. And if you want to, you can go into the settings as a GM, and you do have the opportunity to tint the models. So I've enabled myself GM access now, so we can look at some of these models, or sprites, whatever you want to call them. What we've done is we've taken them straight from Fumble, but because the models, if you resize them to fit the square, they all ratio at different sizes, so the smaller models will actually just end up exactly the same size as the ogres. So what I did in GIMP was just basically double size them and set their blank canvas size to 70 pixels, because each of these squares is 70 pixels, and then I centered the remaining sprite. So that what that does is that means you get a different size for your Noblars, your goblins, your dwarves, your rat ogres, and ogres who are normally and you want to double the size as well, but they will be over 70 pixels. And there's the anchor points at the top left hand side, so they will ever so slightly spill outside of their square, but it's only by a few pixels, and I think it's better that way to represent their size. A couple of other tips and tricks is you've got this page toolbar at the top. Let's give that a click, and you can see the different pitches that are within your game. If you want to move the players, you just hold that player thing and drag it around. And on the toolbar here, so we've got it set to chat, because then when you roll weather, kickoff table, it just populates in the bottom of the box there, which I think my head is probably in the way of. Yeah, it is. But if we jump to our stream setup, you can see that by clicking these buttons, let's go for an injury roll, you can see what happens there. So in the top, the only other one to be useful is the collection tab, which is where you can manage your macros. So having these in bar just gives you these options down the bottom. Really recommend them, very useful. I've got the rollable tables here, which you can add to and amend to. And then in the settings, you can, if you're the GM, you can rejoin as a player, you can change the display name. You've got a whole bunch of other settings here, which I've not played with yet and haven't needed to so far. So we'll stay on the web page layout, and we'll do some input from our other computer here, so we can see what it looks like when you are not the active player. So as your opponent is playing, this is what you'll see. You'll have this screen, you'll have the chat on the right hand side, which you can chat in, but it's also there for dice and whatnot. And on the left here, you'll see the pitch. So let's say that we are going to move our ogre. This ogre here, he is going to perform, let's make him red to say he's activated, he's going to perform a blitz, and he is going to blitz 1, 2, because I'm in the open, I'm just going to track movement with right clicking, 3, 4, down to there, and then he's going to blitz this guy here. So strength 5 against strength 3, haven't got the strength set up in there, but should have. So strength 5 against strength 3, 2 dice. So I'm going to click the roll the dice button, and we're going to see it pop up behind my head there, a pow and a push, and then the opponent is going to say, right, I'm going to move your little guy, I'm going to pop him down there, I'm going to follow up, and then I'm going to roll 2 dice for damage. 9 breaks the armor, and then what happens? Rolled a 7. There is an injury chart instead, so roll the injury chart. Ah, knocked out. And it is a 8, so that, you know, if he's thick skull, he doesn't get put there. And because your opponent's knocked him out, he can move him down into the knockout box, and we'll pop him with a little red mark. He's knocked out. So I suppose one other useful thing is just talk about who's going to move whose models and who's going to do the statuses. So it might be quicker for your opponent to talk through what they're going to do, and for you to be responsible for your own players with regards to the statuses, so they can move the players. So in that sequence there, we had the ogre here moving down, and he moved the player. And if you are responsible for your own statuses, actually keeps you active a little bit, but also it saves a bit of time on the other player's hand. So if my opponent is changing his statuses to say knocked out, moving his guys around to the dead and used up pile, it will save you a bit of time. I think that about sums up everything that I wanted to talk through with regards to using the product. Setting it up is a bit trickier. If you know someone who's got it set up, they might be able to share it with you and give you DM access so that you can run a little session. That is a bit more complicated than this video. This video is just about best practices and how to actually use the interface. Hopefully that's helped. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below or drop me a message, because this is a really useful little tool and a way to play sevens.